A country girl torn from everything she knows. A warrior feared for never showing emotion. When duty forces them together, the truth he hides may change everything. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the eye. And if you like the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. Montana Territory, 1868. Sarah Mitchell clutched her worn journal as the wagon rumbled across the rugged prairie. At 20, she had never imagined herself traveling to a Cheyenne settlement as part of a peace agreement between her father's trading post and the neighboring tribe. The summer sun beat down mercilessly, matching the heat of her rising anxiety. "We'll be arriving soon," her father said gruffly, his weathered hands tight on the reins. "Remember what I told you, Sarah. This marriage will secure our safety and trading rights. Chief Running Elk's son may be known as Stoneface among his people, but you'll be treated well." Sarah swallowed hard. "But father, I've never even met him. How can I marry a man whose real name I don't even know?" "Maheo," her father corrected. "His name is Maheo, though few speak it. He earned his warrior name after surviving an attack that killed his mother and sister. He hasn't shown emotion since. The arrangement is done, Sarah, for all our sakes." The wagon crested a hill, revealing a settlement of hide-covered teepees nestled against a backdrop of distant mountains. People moved about their daily tasks, some pausing to observe the approaching wagon. "I understand our situation," Sarah whispered, fingers tracing the leather binding of her journal. "But does he even know English? How will we communicate?" He was educated at the mission school before returning to his people. He speaks better English than some settlers. Her father's expression softened momentarily. "I wouldn't send you if I had any other choice. The drought has left us with nothing. This alliance will save our family, the trading post, everything." Sarah nodded silently, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. She had packed her few belongings, some clothes, her mother's silver hairbrush, and most importantly, her journals filled with stories and sketches of the Montana wilderness she loved so dearly. As they approached the settlement, warriors on horseback rode out to meet them. Leading them was a tall figure whose presence commanded immediate attention. His obsidian eyes surveyed them without betraying a single thought, his copper skin bearing the marks of battle and survival. A single eagle feather adorned his long, black hair. "That's him," her father whispered. "Maheo, Stoneface." Sarah felt her breath catch. The warrior was undeniably handsome, but the complete absence of expression in his face sent a chill through her, despite the summer heat. How could she possibly build a life with someone so utterly unreachable? Chief Running Elk stepped forward as they dismounted. "Mitchell," he greeted Sarah's father, "you have brought your daughter as promised." "As agreed," her father replied, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "My daughter, Sarah." Sarah curtsied awkwardly, keeping her eyes lowered as she'd been instructed. When she finally looked up, she found Maheo studying her with those impenetrable eyes. "The ceremony will be at sunset," the chief declared. "Woman, speak softly, Will. Prepare the bride." An elderly woman with kind eyes approached, gesturing for Sarah to follow. As she was led away, Sarah glanced back at her father, who nodded encouragingly. Then her eyes met Maheo's once more. For the briefest moment, she thought she detected something, curiosity perhaps, flickering across his stoic features. The preparation was a blur of unfamiliar rituals. Woman Speak Softly, who knew some English, explained each tradition while adorning Sarah in a beautifully beaded dress. "He is good man," the elderly woman said as she braided Sarah's hair. "Strong, respected, lost much, speaks little." "Has he—" Sarah hesitated. "Has he had other wives?" The woman shook her head. "Many women wish to marry Stoneface. He refuses all, until now." She gave Sarah a knowing look. "Chief says he must take wife. For peace. For future. So he doesn't want this marriage either," Sarah whispered, unsure whether to feel relieved or insulted. "Want is not our way. Duty is our way. Happiness comes from honor." Woman Speak Softly patted Sarah's hand. "You will learn. The ceremony took place as the sun painted the sky in blazing oranges and purples. Sarah stood trembling beside the impassive Maheo, following instructions she barely understood, speaking words in a language not her own. Through it all, Maheo's expression remained unchanged, his responses mechanical and precise. Afterward, there was a celebration with dancing and feasting, but Sarah felt increasingly isolated, a stranger in what was now supposed to be her home. Her father would leave in the morning, returning to their struggling trading post with promises of supplies from their new Cheyenne allies. When the celebrations finally ended, Woman Speaks softly led Sarah to Maheo's teepee on the edge of the settlement. It was larger than most, befitting his status as the chief's son, and decorated with painted symbols Sarah couldn't decipher. "This home now," the older woman said kindly. "Be patient. Be strong." With that, she left Sarah standing alone at the entrance. Sarah took a deep breath and pushed aside the flap, stepping into her new life. Inside the teepee, Sarah found herself surrounded by surprising order and comfort. Furs covered the ground, a small fire burned in the central pit, and various handcrafted items were arranged with care. Maheo stood by the fire, his tall figure casting elongated shadows across the walls. "You may place your belongings there," he said, his English perfect but flat, pointing to a storage area. His voice startled her, deep and resonant despite its emotional restraint. "Thank you," Sarah replied, carefully setting down her small bundle. Awkward silence stretched between them as she stood uncertainly, hands clasped before her. "You are afraid," Maheo observed, not a question but a statement of fact. Sarah lifted her chin. "I'm nervous. This isn't what I expected from my life." "Nor I from mine." He gestured to a sitting area. "Rest, you must be tired from your journey." Sarah sat cautiously, watching as he methodically added wood to the fire. "May I ask you something?" When he nodded once, she continued. "Why did you agree to this arrangement?" Maheo looked at her directly for the first time since the ceremony. "My father believes our people face difficult times ahead. The white man's government makes promises they do not keep. We need allies among your people." "So duty," Sarah concluded. "Yes." He handed her a cup of water. "But there were other trading families. I chose yours." This revelation surprised her. "Why?" Maheo returned to tending the fire. "Your father treats our people fairly and—" He hesitated. "I have seen you before." "You've seen me? Where?" "At the trading post, last winter. You were drawing in a book like the one you carry now." A slight hesitation. "You gave bread to a hungry Cheyenne child when you thought no one was watching." Sarah remembered the incident. A small boy wandering alone near their trading post during a particularly harsh winter day. "I didn't know anyone saw that." "I did?" For a fleeting moment, something softened in his eyes before disappearing again. "You will not be harmed here. You have my protection." "And what of—" she faltered, her cheeks warming. "What of marriage duties?" Maheo turned away. "You need rest. I will sleep there." He indicated a space across the teepee. "We have time to learn each other's ways." Relief washed over Sarah, followed by confusion at her own reaction. Was she disappointed? No, surely not. Yet his consideration touched her unexpectedly. That night, lying on her bed of furs, Sarah wrote in her journal by firelight, documenting everything about this strange new world. Across the teepee, Maheo's breathing eventually deepened in sleep. When she finally looked up, she noticed a collection of small carved animals near his sleeping area. The delicate craftsmanship surprised her. Such artistry seemed at odds with his warrior reputation. Days passed, falling into a rhythm. Sarah learned Cheyenne customs from Woman Speaks Softly and other women who gradually warmed to her presence. Maheo was often absent, hunting or attending council meetings, but each evening he returned, bringing small gifts: a wildflower, a particularly smooth stone, berries she had mentioned liking. They rarely spoke at length, yet Sarah began noticing subtle changes. The way Maheo's eyes followed her movements, how he positioned himself between her and strangers visiting the settlement, the careful distance he maintained, seemingly for her comfort rather than his own preference. One afternoon, returning from gathering herbs with the other women, Sarah found Maheo in their teepee, working on a carving. He quickly set it aside when she entered. "Was that one of the wooden animals?" she asked. "They're beautiful." Maheo hesitated before retrieving the half-finished carving. "A small deer. My mother taught me. Before she died." Sarah sat nearby, not too close. "Would you tell me about her?" For several minutes she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, in measured words, Maheo spoke of a gentlewoman who told stories through her carvings, who taught him that creating beauty was as important as being strong. As he spoke, his hands remained in constant motion, shaping the wood with practiced precision. "She sounds wonderful," Sarah said when he finished. "My mother died when I was young, too. I barely remember her." "What do you remember?" he asked, the first personal question he had ever directed to her. Her voice when she sang, and that she loved to tell stories. Sarah smiled sadly. "That's why I write in my journals, to keep stories alive like she did." Maheo nodded, understanding in his eyes. He handed her the finished carving. "For you." Sarah accepted it, fingers tracing the delicate details. "Thank you. It's perfect." That evening marked a subtle shift between them. Though Maheo's expression remained largely impassive, small gestures betrayed growing warmth, serving her food first, ensuring she had the most comfortable sitting place, listening attentively when she spoke. Weeks passed, and summer began, yielding to autumn. Sarah found herself adapting to Cheyenne life, learning their language, contributing to communal tasks. The women, seeing her willingness to learn, taught her their crafts and medicines. The children, initially shy, now sought her out for the stories she told, translating them into Cheyenne as best she could. One crisp morning, Maheo approached as she was helping to prepare hides. "Come," he said simply, leading her to where two horses waited. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked, accepting his help mounting the smaller of the two horses. "There is something I wish to show you." They rode for nearly an hour, climbing into the foothills. Sarah marveled at the landscape transformed by autumn colors. Finally, they reached a high meadow overlooking a vast expanse of territory. Mountains. In the distance, forests and the winding silver thread of a river. "It's breathtaking," Sarah whispered. Maheo dismounted and helped her down, his hands lingering briefly at her waist. "This place is sacred to me. I come here to think." "Thank you for sharing it with me," Sarah said sincerely. They sat side by side in comfortable silence, watching eagles circle overhead. When Maheo finally spoke, his voice carried an emotion she hadn't heard before. "My sister would have liked you," he said quietly. "She was brave like you." Sarah turned to him, studying his profile. "I'm not brave. I'm terrified most of the time. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite it." His dark eyes met hers. "You left everything familiar to live among strangers. You try to learn our ways. You smile even when your heart is heavy." His fingers tentatively touched hers. "That is bravery, Sarah Mitchell." "Sarah Stoneface," she corrected softly, using his Cheyenne name for the first time. "That is my name now." Something remarkable happened then. The corner of Maheo's mouth lifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but a definite softening. "Yes," he agreed. "It is." As they rode back to the settlement, Sarah realized with startling clarity that the dread she had felt on her wedding day had transformed into something entirely unexpected. Hope. The first snowfall came earlier than expected, blanketing the settlement in pristine white. Sarah woke to find Maheo already gone, but a small carved wolf sat beside her sleeping area, another addition to her growing collection of his handiwork. She smiled, running her finger along its detailed features before tucking it safely among her possessions. Outside, the settlement was alive with activity despite the cold. Winter preparations intensified as the Cheyenne readied themselves for the harsh season ahead. Sarah had learned enough of their language and customs now to participate fully, earning nods of approval from the elders. Your hands work well with the sinew, Woman Speaks Softly commented as they repaired winter clothing together. You learn quickly. I have good teachers, Sarah replied in careful Cheyenne, drawing pleased laughter from the women gathered around, and, How goes life in your teepee? Another woman asked with a knowing smile. Stoneface seems less stone-faced these days. Sarah felt warmth rise to her cheeks. We are learning each other's ways. The way he watches you when you're not looking tells its own story, Woman Speaks Softly observed. I have not seen such light in his eyes since before the tragedy. What exactly happened to him? Sarah asked hesitantly. I know his mother and sister were killed, but the women exchanged glances before Woman Speaks Softly spoke. It was 7 winters ago. Maheo, his mother, and sister were returning from visiting relatives in another band. Soldiers attacked without warning or reason. Maheo fought bravely, but was struck unconscious. When he woke, he found his mother and sister. She shook her head sadly. After that day, he spoke little and showed no emotion. Many feared his spirit had died with them. How terrible, Sarah whispered. He was 16 summers, already becoming a man but still a boy in many ways. The elderly woman patted Sarah's. Nditi, the boy died that day. The man became Stoneface, until recently. Before Sarah could respond, commotion arose at the edge of the settlement. Warriors returned from hunting, Maheo among them. But something was wrong. They moved with urgency, and one man was being carried. Sarah rose quickly, following as Woman Speaks Softly hurried toward the gathering crowd. Maheo was issuing commands, his face tense with concern. What happened? Sarah asked a young boy nearby. White trappers, the boy explained in broken English. Shot at hunting party, hit lone elk. Sarah pushed forward, her experience helping her father with trading post-injuries giving her confidence. When she reached the injured man, she saw immediately that the bullet wound in his shoulder needed attention. I can help, she told Maheo, their eyes meeting over the wounded warrior. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Show me. In the medicine woman's teepee, Sarah worked alongside the tribal healers, cleaning and treating the wound with a combination of their traditional methods and techniques she had learned from her father. Throughout the procedure, she felt Maheo's presence behind her, watching intently. When they had finished and the injured man rested comfortably, Maheo followed her outside. Where did you learn such skills? My father often treated injuries at our trading post, she explained. I assisted him. You did more than assist today. His voice carried unmistakable respect. You may have saved Lone Elk's arm, possibly his life. The trappers who did this, Sarah began carefully, were they from the settlement near my father's trading post? Maheo's expression darkened. No, these were strangers, moving through our hunting grounds without permission, taking more than their share of beaver and driving away game our people need for winter. What will happen now? We must increase patrols of our territories. Winter comes, and we cannot afford conflict, but neither can we lose hunting grounds. Concern etched lines around his eyes. These are not like your father. These men see only what they can take. That evening in their teepee, Maheo was unusually restless. Sarah watched as he methodically checked his weapons, his movements betraying tension. You're worried, she observed, setting aside her sewing. He glanced up, seemingly surprised by her perception. Winter will be difficult. Game is already scarce. Sarah moved closer, cautiously bridging the physical distance they typically maintained. Is there anything I can do to help? Maheo set down the knife he'd been sharpening. You already do much. The women speak highly of you. The children seek your stories. After a pause, he added more softly, You bring light to places long dark. Sarah felt her breath catch at the unexpected words. Maheo. His hand reached out, tentatively touching a strand of her hair that had fallen loose. I never expected, he began, then stopped, emotion finally breaking through his careful control. I never expected to feel again after what happened. And now, Sarah whispered. Now I find myself watching for your smile. The admission seemed to cost him great effort. I listen for your voice. His hand dropped away. It is unfamiliar to me, these feelings. Sarah gathered her courage and reached for his hand. It's unfamiliar to me too. I came here expecting to live as a stranger among your people forever. I never thought I would find, she hesitated, understanding, connection. Maheo's fingers curled around hers. When my mother and sister died, I buried my heart with them. I became stoneface because feeling nothing was easier than feeling everything. And now? Sarah repeated. Now I find my heart returning, beat by beat. His dark eyes held hers. It terrifies me more than any battle. Sarah smiled gently. Courage is not the absence of fear, she reminded him, echoing his own words. For the first time since she had known him, Maheo smiled, a true smile that transformed his face entirely. You remember my words. I remember everything about you, she admitted. Slowly, with the caution of someone approaching something precious and fragile, Maheo leaned forward and pressed his forehead to hers, an intimate gesture among his people. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers, the steadiness of his breathing. My wife, he whispered in Cheyenne, the words carrying a depth of meaning that transcended mere legal bonds. That night, for the first time, they slept side by side, her head resting on his shoulder, his arm protectively around her. No more words were needed as something new and tender grew between them, delicate as the first spring shoots emerging from winter ground. Days later, however, their newfound peace was shattered. Sarah was collecting water when riders approached. The settlement at speed. Cheyenne scouts returning with urgent news. She watched as they conferred with the chief and Maheo, noting immediately how both men stiffened at whatever they were hearing. When Maheo sought her out afterward, his expression had reverted to the stoic mask she had first known. The trappers, who shot lone elk, have joined with others. They claim this territory now and demand we leave. But this is your home, Sarah protested. They have no right. Rights mean little to men with guns and greed. He took her hands. Listen carefully. The council meets to decide our response, but I fear conflict comes. If fighting begins, you must stay with woman. Speak softly. She knows safe places in the hills. I won't hide while you're in danger, Sarah argued. Maheo's eyes flashed. You must. I cannot. His voice faltered. I cannot lose you too. The raw emotion in his voice silenced her protests. What will you do? First, we send messengers to neighboring bands for support. Then, he hesitated, I believe we should seek help from your father and other fair-minded settlers. This affects them too. These trappers respect no boundaries. Let me go, Sarah suggested. I can reach my father quickly and explain the situation. Too dangerous. Maheo shook his head firmly. These men are between us and the trading post. Then what? A commotion outside interrupted them. They emerged from their teepee to see a lone rider approaching, a white man on a lathered horse. Sarah recognized him immediately. Thomas, she exclaimed as her father's assistant dismounted. What are you doing here? Thomas looked exhausted, his face grim. Sarah, thank God you're safe. I've come to warn you all. A group of trappers and hunters are planning to attack this settlement. They've been drinking and talking about clearing the savages for days. My father? He sent me the long way around to warn you while he tries to gather men to stop them, but he feared I might not make it in time. Thomas looked at Maheo. They have many guns. They come from the east, following the river. Maheo nodded once, already turning to relay orders. How many? 20, maybe more, led by a man called McCready. Sarah felt cold fear grip her heart. James McCready had a reputation for brutality toward Native people, fueled by a personal vendetta after losing family in conflicts years before. As the settlement erupted into defensive preparations, Sarah found herself torn between two worlds, watching as her husband organized warriors with calm efficiency while processing the threat from men who were, ostensibly, her own people. That night, as the settlement prepared for possible attack, Maheo found Sarah sitting alone outside their teepee, gazing at the stars. "You should rest," he said softly, settling beside her. "How can I?" She turned to him, moonlight silvering her features. "Everything could be destroyed tomorrow." Maheo was silent for a long moment before speaking. "When I lost my mother and sister, I believed nothing good would ever come again. I was wrong." His hand found hers. "Whatever happens tomorrow, know that meeting you has healed something I thought broken forever." Sarah leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "We will find a way through this," she promised. "Together." As they sat beneath the vast Montana sky, the uncertain future stretched before them. But for the first time since her arrival, Sarah truly felt she belonged, not just in this place, but at this man's side, bridging two worlds that desperately needed to find common ground. Dawn broke with an eerie stillness over the Cheyenne settlement. Overnight, families with young children had been moved to a sheltered location in the nearby hills, accompanied by the elderly and those unable to fight. Sarah had stubbornly refused to join them, insisting her knowledge of both worlds might prove valuable. "The warriors are in position," Maheo reported as he entered their teepee, where Sarah was preparing medicine bundles. "Thomas believes the trappers will come before midday." Sarah nodded, focusing on her task to hide her trembling hands. "My father should arrive with help soon." "Perhaps." Maheo knelt beside her, gently stilling her movements. "Sarah, if things go badly—" "Don't," she interrupted, meeting his gaze. "We will find a way." His hand cupped her cheek, eyes memorizing her features. "You have taught me to hope again. Whatever happens, remember that." The warning came shortly before noon, a high whistle from a scout positioned in the hills. Maheo immediately moved to his position with the warriors, while Sarah joined Woman Speaks Softly, who had refused evacuation, preparing to tend to any wounded. From their vantage point, they could see the approaching men, a ragged line of trappers, and frontiersmen on horseback, rifles prominent. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man with a distinctive red beard, could only be McCready. Chief Running Elk stood prominently at the settlement's edge, flanked by Maheo and other respected warriors. Their stance was defensive but resolute. "This is Cheyenne land," the chief called out as the riders approached. "You are not welcome here," McCready spat contemptuously. "Indian land? This is American territory now. President Grant signed the papers himself." "We have treaties," the chief responded. "Papers for savages ain't worth the ink they're printed with," McCready sneered, raising his rifle. "You've got till sundown to clear out, or we burn this place to the ground." Sarah could remain silent no longer. Despite Maheo's warning look, she stepped forward. "Mr. McCready, these people have legal rights to this territory under the Fort Laramie Treaty." McCready's eyes widened in surprise. "Well, I'll be damned. Mitchell's daughter playing squaw." His expression turned ugly. "Your daddy know you've gone native, girl?" "My father respects the Cheyenne and honors his agreements with them," Sarah replied steadily, "as should any honorable man." "Honor?" McCready laughed harshly. "Tell that to my brother's scalped corpse. Only good Indian is a—" "That's enough, McCready." The new voice came from behind the trapper's line. Sarah's heart leapt as her father emerged with several armed settlers. "This ends now." "Mitchell," McCready acknowledged coldly, "this ain't your business. My daughter and my trading partners make it my business." Mitchell's rifle remained pointed at McCready as he maneuvered his horse toward the Cheyenne side. The territorial governor wouldn't take kindly to hearing about armed men threatening peaceful tribes who've signed treaties. "Peaceful?" McCready spat. "They've been stealing our traps and threatening our men." "Lies," Maheo stated flatly. "Your men trespass on hunting grounds and take more than their share. When asked to respect boundaries, they shoot our hunters." "It's true," Thomas confirmed. "I've seen their camps. They're stripping beaver streams bare, violating trapping regulations." Tension stretched between the groups like a bowstring pulled. "Too tight." Sarah held her breath, watching MacCready's finger hovering near his trigger. "Seems we've reached an impasse," MacCready finally said, "and I don't much care for the odds anymore." His eyes narrowed at Maheo. "This ain't finished." "Today it is," Mitchell stated firmly. "Ride out, MacCready." For a moment, it seemed MacCready might defy the order, but faced with Mitchell's men and the Cheyenne warriors, he eventually signaled his trappers to withdraw. "We'll be back with more men," he promised ominously. Only when the last of the trappers disappeared from sight did Sarah release her breath. Her father dismounted and embraced her tightly. "Are you all right?" he asked, examining her face. "I'm fine, Father. Better than fine." She glanced toward Maheo, who was conferring with the chief. "But MacCready will return." "Yes," her father agreed grimly. "This is only a temporary reprieve." That evening, a council gathered in the chief's teepee, Cheyenne leaders, Mitchell, and several respected settlers who had come with him. Sarah sat beside Maheo, acting as an additional translator when needed. "MacCready has been causing problems throughout the territory," one settler explained. "The territorial government is concerned about his actions, but they're slow to respond. We cannot simply wait for him to return with more men," Chief Running Elk stated. "Winter approaches. Our people need security." Mitchell leaned forward. "I've been thinking on this. MacCready's power comes from operating in isolation, playing settlers and tribes against each other. What if we created something more formal than individual trading agreements? An official alliance between the settlement and your people?" "What kind of alliance?" Maheo asked. "A mutual protection pact. Combined patrols of the territory, shared. Hunting rights with agreed limitations. A council with representatives from both communities to resolve disputes." Mitchell glanced at Sarah. "My daughter's marriage has already created one bond between us. We can build on that foundation." Discussions continued late into the night, working through details, addressing concerns from both sides. Sarah watched, with growing hope as Maheo emerged as a voice of reason, respected by both the Cheyenne elders and the settlers. When the council finally disbanded with a tentative agreement, Maheo and Sarah walked slowly back to their teepee under a sky brilliant with stars. "Your father is a wise man," Maheo observed. "This alliance could change many things." "If it works," Sarah cautioned, "there will still be people like MacCready." "Yes." Maheo stopped, turning to face her. "But for the first time, I see a possible future where our peoples do not destroy each other." His hands gently grasped her shoulders. "You bridge our worlds, Sarah. You have shown me that understanding is possible." "We bridge them together," she corrected, reaching up to touch his face. "Stoneface and Sarah Mitchell," he smiled, that rare, transformative expression she treasured. "No longer just Stoneface," he said softly. "With you, I am simply Maheo again." In the weeks that followed, the alliance took shape. Joint patrols of Cheyenne warriors and settlers located MacCready's new camp and, with territorial marshals finally involved, arrested him for multiple violations of trapping laws and assault. The territorial governor, seeing political advantage in peaceful relations, formally recognized the unique arrangement. Winter settled over Montana, harsh as expected, but the combined resources of the settlement and the Cheyenne village ensured both communities survived. In their teepee, Sarah and Maheo created a home that honored both their traditions, her books and journals alongside his carvings and weapons. On the coldest night of winter, as wind howled outside their shelter, Maheo worked on a special carving while Sarah wrote in her journal. The comfortable silence between them spoke volumes about how far they had come. "What are you writing?" he asked, glancing up from his work. Sarah smiled. "Our story. How a country girl married the coldest Cheyenne warrior, only to discover his hidden heart." Maheo set aside his carving, a pair of wolves, heads touching to form a heart between them. "And how does this story end?" "It doesn't end," Sarah replied, moving to sit beside him. "The best stories continue beyond the last page." Taking her hand, Maheo pressed it gently to his chest. My heart was silent for many winters. You awakened it again. And mine found a home I never expected, Sarah whispered. Outside, the Montana winter raged, but within their teepee, Maheo and Sarah had created something remarkable. A sanctuary of understanding between two worlds. A love that transcended boundaries and a foundation for a future neither could have imagined alone. As spring approached, bringing new growth and possibilities, Sarah added a final line to her winter journal. Sometimes the coldest warrior has the warmest heart. You just need the courage to discover it.